Most people think emotional maturity looks like confidence, or control, or never getting triggered. But real maturity is quieter than that. It doesn't announce itself in arguments. It doesn't post quotes. It doesn't need to prove anything. You don't recognize it by how loudly someone speaks. You recognize it by how safe your nervous system feels around them, by how your body softens, by how your breath slows, by how you don't have to perform, impress, or protect yourself. Emotional maturity is not perfection. It is what happens when a person has stopped running from their own pain and started listening to it. If you see these signs, not just in others, but in yourself, you are not just growing, you are healing. Emotionally mature people are not fearless. They still feel anxiety, they still get hurt, they still get misunderstood. But they no longer confuse intensity with intimacy. They no longer confuse chaos with connection. They no longer confuse attachment with love. They understand something most people never learn, that unhealed pain will always try to speak through defensiveness, through control, through silence, through over-giving, through anger. So instead of asking, how do I win? They ask, what is being protected inside me right now? Instead of blaming, they get curious. Instead of exploding, they pause. Instead of abandoning themselves to keep a relationship, they choose honesty. Even when it costs them closeness, they know that love without safety becomes survival, and survival is not intimacy. They don't need to dominate a room to feel valuable. They don't need to disappear to be loved. They learn slowly, painfully, that self-betrayal is more damaging than rejection, so their behavior changes, not dramatically, not loudly, but consistently, quietly, in ways that regulate the nervous system instead of hijacking it. That is emotional maturity, not being unbreakable, but being honest about where you are broken and refusing to let your wounds control how you treat people. I will talk about 7-7-GREN phase of EMATION ALY MATUOPOE. Number is that they pause before they react. They pause before they react, not because they are slow, but because they are listening. Inside that pause, something very human is happening. The body tightens, the heart speeds up, old memories rise quietly. The nervous system prepares for a familiar fight or a familiar retreat. Most people never notice this moment. They are already speaking while their past is still holding the pen. Emotionally mature people notice. They feel the surge of heat in the chest, the pressure in the throat, the urge to defend, to explain, to attack, or to disappear. And instead of obeying it, they become curious about it. They silently ask, what is this protecting in me? Not, how do I win? Not, how do I look strong? But, what part of me is afraid right now? That pause is not weakness. It is courage, because it means choosing awareness over impulse, presence over programming. They understand that most reactions are not responses to the present moment, but echoes from earlier wounds. A tone of voice becomes an old rejection. A delayed message becomes abandonment. A disagreement becomes danger. The body does not know the difference between then and now, unless someone teaches it. So they teach themselves. They breathe, not to be calm for show, but to tell their nervous system, you are not under attack anymore. They let the first wave pass. They let the story in their head finish shouting. And only then do they speak. When they finally respond, it comes from the adult in them, not the injured child. This is how safety is created. Not by perfection, but by restraint. Not by silence, but by intention. Their pause becomes a shelter for them and for the person standing in front of them. Because when someone chooses to slow down instead of striking back, they are saying, without words, your nervous system matters to me, and mine does too. And that is not just emotional maturity, that is healing in motion. Number 2 is, they take responsibility without collapsing into shame. They take responsibility without collapsing into shame, because they've learned the difference between being wrong and being unworthy. Shame doesn't say, I made a mistake. Shame says, I am the mistake. And when someone is trapped in shame, real accountability becomes almost impossible. Not because they don't care, but because the nervous system hears feedback as danger. A simple sentence like, that hurt me, can feel like a verdict. A request like, can you own this, can feel like exile. So the body reacts the way it learned to survive, deny, defend, explain, blame, minimize, go cold, go quiet, or go dramatic. Emotionally mature people have done enough inner work to recognize that pattern. They can feel the sting of being confronted, the tightening in the chest, the urge to justify, the fear of being seen as bad, and they don't let it drive the conversation. They don't hand the steering wheel to panic. They notice it, they breathe into it, and they stay present because they understand something essential. Responsibility is not humiliation, it's repair. They can say, "You're right, I did that," not as a performance, not to end the conflict quickly, but as a way of honoring truth. And the way they do it is very telling. They don't turn the moment into a courtroom where they must prove innocence. They don't start listing reasons why they behaved that way. They don't make the other person comfort them for the harm they caused. They don't collapse into, "I'm the worst," because that's still self-centered. It forces the focus onto their pain, not the impact. Instead, they hold two realities at once. I can be a good person and still hurt you. I can be trying my best and still need to do better. That's maturity. They allow themselves to feel regret without turning it into self-hatred. Regret is clean. Regret says, "I see the impact and I want to change." Shame is heavy and sticky shame says, "Hide, disappear, punish yourself." One leads to growth, the other leads to repetition. So when they take responsibility, you'll notice how grounded they are. They speak simply. They don't overtalk. They don't twist the story. They don't demand immediate forgiveness. They might say, "I see how that landed. I'm sorry. I understand why it hurt. I won't do it again." And if they don't know how to change yet, they don't pretend. They say, "I need to learn a better way. I'm willing." That willingness is everything, because taking responsibility without shame means you are strong enough to look at your behavior without needing to destroy yourself to prove you care. It means you can face discomfort and remain connected to yourself and to the other person. And that is what makes someone safe, not that they never mess up, but that when they do, they don't run, they attack, they don't collapse. They stay, they own it, they repair it, and they regrow from it. Number 3 is they can sit with discomfort without escaping it. They can sit with discomfort without escaping it because they have learned that pain is not an emergency. Most people were never taught this. They were taught that uncomfortable feelings are problems to fix, weaknesses to hide, or threats to outrun. So the moment anxiety rises, they reach for distraction. When sadness appears, they look for noise. When tension enters a relationship, they either create drama or disappear, not because they are shallow, but because their nervous system believes discomfort means danger. Emotionally mature people have slowly unlearned that reflex. They still feel the same sensations: the tight chest, the restless hands, the heat behind the eyes, the urge to move, to explain, to soothe, to control. But instead of obeying the impulse to escape, they stay where they are, inside their body, inside the moment. They understand that feelings move like weather. If you don't fight the storm, it passes. If you don't run from the cloud, it thins. But if you panic, if you suppress, if you numb, the feeling doesn't disappear, it goes underground and waits. So they let the wave rise. They notice the story their mind wants to tell. This is too much. I can't handle this. Something is wrong with me. And they don't argue with it, but they don't let it become the truth either. They stay curious. They breathe slowly, not to perform calmness, but to remind the body that the present moment is survivable. This is not passivity. It is strength that doesn't need armor, because sitting with discomfort means choosing reality over relief. It means allowing silence in a difficult conversation instead of filling it with defense, allowing tears instead of jokes, allowing uncertainty instead of rushing into false certainty, allowing longing instead of chasing the wrong closeness. They know that rushing to feel better often creates something worse later: resentment, emotional debt, unspoken grief, or relationships built on avoidance. So they stay. They stay with the awkward pause. They stay with the unsent message. They stay with the question that doesn't yet have an answer. They stay with the feeling that wants to be felt, not fixed. And because they stay, something changes. The nervous system learns a new language. I can be uncomfortable and still be safe. The heart learns, I don't have to abandon myself to be loved. The mind learns, I don't have to control everything to survive. This is how emotional maturity rewires the body, not just the thoughts. It teaches a person that peace is not the absence of discomfort, but the ability to remain present inside it. And that presence becomes powerful, because anyone can be kind when life is easy, but the person who can remain open while feeling tense, unsure, exposed, or disappointed, that person is no longer ruled by their fear. They are guided by awareness. And that changes everything: how they love, how they listen, how they argue, how they leave, how they stay. They don't escape discomfort, they let it teach them. And then they move forward, not numb, not hardened, but steadier, clearer, and more whole. Number 4 is they communicate directly, not strategically. They communicate directly, not strategically, because they are no longer trying to survive the conversation. Most people don't speak to be understood. They speak to protect themselves. They calculate tone. They soften truth to avoid rejection. They exaggerate pain to be taken seriously. They hide needs behind jokes. They deliver honesty wrapped in blame so it doesn't feel vulnerable. This is not manipulation in the cruel sense. It is adaptation. It is what happens when someone learned early that being clear was unsafe. Emotionally mature people have unlearned that. They don't treat communication like a chessboard. They don't plan 3 moves ahead. They don't plant emotional landmines and call it honesty. They don't withhold information to gain leverage. They speak from where they actually are, not from where they want to control the outcome. When something hurts, they don't hint, they name it. When they need space, they don't disappear, they say it. When they care, they don't perform indifference to appear powerful. They allow themselves to be visible. This takes enormous courage, because direct communication removes armor. It means risking misunderstanding. It means risking not being chosen. It means risking hearing no without collapsing. So they speak simply. I felt hurt when this happened. I need time. I don't understand. Can you help me? I care about you. I'm not okay with that. No dramatic framing. No hidden tests. No emotional traps designed to measure love. They don't expect the other person to decode them, because they understand something deeply. Clarity is kindness. Strategic communication tries to manage the other person's emotions. Direct communication respects their autonomy. It says, here is my truth. You are free to respond to it. And when conflict comes, as it always does, they don't turn the conversation into a courtroom or a battlefield. They don't collect evidence to prove their worth. They don't speak to win. They speak to be real. You can feel the difference in your body. There is no fog, no constant second guessing, no anxiety about hidden meanings. Their words match their behavior. Their tone matches their intention. Their silence matches what they've already said. And because of that, something rare happens. You don't have to stay alert around them. You don't have to translate. You don't have to shrink or perform or over-explain. You can just listen and be heard. That is not just good communication. That is a nervous system that no longer believes connection requires disguise. That is someone who has learned that being honest is safer than being clever. And that is emotional maturity in its quietest, strongest form. Number 5 is they respect boundaries, including their own. They respect boundaries, including their own, because they no longer confuse endurance with love. For a long time, many people believe that being good means being available. That caring means overextending. That loyalty means staying quiet when something hurts. So they say yes while their body is whispering no. They smile while their chest tightens. They give until they feel hollow, and then they call that devotion. Emotionally mature people have learned, often through exhaustion or heartbreak, that this is not kindness. It is self-abandonment. They have felt what happens when their limits are ignored, the slow resentment, the numbness, the quiet anger that turns into distance. They have watched how unspoken no becomes withdrawal, how swallowed needs become sharp words later, how the body keeps score even when the mouth stays polite. So they begin to listen inward. They notice the subtle signals, the fatigue that doesn't go away, the tension in the jaw, the irritation that arrives too quickly, the heaviness that settles after certain interactions. They understand these are not flaws, they are messages, and instead of silencing those messages, they translate them into language. I can't do that. I need rest. That doesn't feel okay for me. I care about you, but I'm at my limit, not as punishment, not as threat, not as withdrawal of love, as honesty. They know that a boundary is not a wall. It is a doorway with consent. It does not say, you are bad. It says, this is where I end. And because they honor their own edges, they can honor the edges of others too. They don't take someone's limits as rejection. They don't pressure, guilt, or persuade. They don't treat access as entitlement. When someone says no, they hear information, not insult, because they understand something deeply loved that requires erasure is not love. It is survival wearing a soft face. They also know that boundaries protect relationships, not destroy them. Without them, closeness becomes crowded, care becomes obligation, affection becomes debt, and slowly, quietly, connection turns into resentment. So they choose clarity over comfort. They risk being misunderstood instead of being depleted. They risk disappointing instead of disappearing. They risk honesty instead of quiet self-betrayal. And in doing so, they create a different kind of safety, the kind where you don't have to overgive to be kept, the kind where you don't have to perform exhaustion to prove loyalty, the kind where both people get to exist, not just one. They respect boundaries because they respect life, their time, their energy, their emotional capacity, their nervous system. And when someone lives this way, you can feel it. There is no invisible tug of war, no silent scorekeeping, no pressure to become smaller. There is space to breathe, to choose, to stay willingly. That is not distance, that is healthy closeness. That is emotional maturity that knows love grows best where there is room to stand. Number 6 is they're consistent, not intense. They are consistent, not intense, because they have learned that the nervous system does not trust fireworks. It trusts patterns. Intensity is easy to mistake for depth. Loud affection, grand promises, sudden closeness, emotional floods that feel like destiny. For many people, this kind of connection feels powerful because it activates old wiring, the part of the body that learned to associate love with unpredictability, attention with relief, and closeness with emotional survival. But emotionally mature people have felt what comes after intensity, the crash, the confusion, the withdrawal, the emotional hangover where yesterday's devotion becomes today's distance, so they choose something quieter. They show up when it's boring, when nothing dramatic is happening, when there is no audience, when no reward is guaranteed. Their care does not spike and vanish, it hums. You don't have to decode their mood to know where you stand. You don't have to chase the version of them that only appears in moments of passion or crisis. You don't have to brace yourself for emotional weather changes. They don't love in bursts. They love in rhythm. They answer when they say they will. They follow through on small things. They speak the same way on calm days as they do on difficult ones. Their kindness does not require perfect conditions. This steadiness is not a lack of feeling. It is regulated feeling. They can feel deeply without letting emotion run the relationship. They don't use closeness as a drug and distance as punishment. They don't confuse urgency with importance. They don't build connection on adrenaline. They understand that safety is created by repetition, by knowing what to expect, by seeing behavior align with words, by experiencing care that doesn't disappear when conflict arrives. Consistency teaches the body, I don't have to stay alert. It teaches the heart, I don't have to earn peace. It teaches the mind, I don't have to guess. And that changes how love feels. It becomes spacious instead of consuming, secure instead of intoxicating, grounded instead of dramatic. Some people mistake this for boring, but it is not boredom, it is the absence of threat. It is the relief of not having to brace for loss every time you get close. Emotionally mature people understand that real connection is not measured by how high it climbs, but by how long it holds. They choose to be reliable over impressive, predictable over dazzling, steady over overwhelming, because intensity excites the nervous system, but consistency heals it. And healing, not excitement, is what allows love to last. Last green flag is you feel calmer after interacting with them. You feel calmer after interacting with them, not more alert, not more confused, not replaying the conversation in your head, not scanning for what you might have done wrong. Calmer, your shoulders drop without you noticing. Your breathing deepens on its own. Your thoughts slow down instead of racing to make sense of mixed signals. This is not chemistry, it is regulation. Most people don't realize how often their bodies are bracing in relationships. They mistake the constant tightness in the chest for attraction, the stomach knots for passion, the emotional roller coaster for depth. But that state is not connection, it is vigilance. Emotionally mature people don't trigger that alarm system. They don't keep you guessing where you stand. They don't speak in contradictions. They don't move closer and farther in the same breath. They don't give affection one day and distance the next. Their presence is coherent. What they say matches what they do. What they promise matches what they deliver. What they feel matches how they behave. And your body notices before your mind does. You don't rehearse your sentences around them. You don't shrink to stay safe. You don't perform to stay liked. You are not on trial. You are allowed to be unfinished. You are allowed to be quiet. You are allowed to be unsure. There is no pressure to be more impressive, more agreeable, more polished. Their nervous system is not trying to recruit yours into chaos, so yours can rest. This calm is subtle but profound. It is the feeling of not being managed, not being evaluated, not being emotionally negotiated with, just being met. And when you leave their presence, you don't feel emptied. You feel clearer, not because all your problems are solved, because nothing inside you had to fight to exist. That is how you recognize emotional maturity, not by intensity, not by words, but by what your body does in their company. If you feel steadier instead of smaller, quieter instead of tensing, more yourself instead of more careful, that is not coincidence. That is safety. And safety is the deepest form of attraction the human nervous system knows. Emotional maturity is not about being healed. It is about being honest. It is about noticing when your past is driving your present and gently taking the wheel back. It is about choosing connection without abandoning yourself. And if you are learning this, if you are practicing this, if you are failing and returning again, you are already further than you think. Because the most mature thing a human being can do is stop running from their own pain and stop passing it to others.